Hi, I'm Kylie. I am the person behind Thyroid School, and I have been running Thyroid School since 2015. And I thought today I would share with you the story of how my transformation actually came about. Because when I started Thyroid School, I weighed double my size. And it was the whole reason I became a naturopath, clinical nutritionist, and herbalist was to reverse that weight. It was to have a better quality of life and to feel better about myself. And it was to reverse my thyroid disease because I believed I fully could. Now, that didn't happen. I discovered I had Hashimoto's in college because for 20 years before that, I thought I just had hypothyroidism because when I was diagnosed, they didn't run those tests at all. So it wasn't until I got to college that a lecturer said to me, Kylie, do you have Hashimoto's? And I was like, I have no idea. And so I went back to my doctor and said, do I have antibodies for Hashimoto's? And she said, oh, we've never run it. And there was no apologies for it or, oh, I've overlooked that. It was just a blanket statement. No, 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 we've never looked into that. And that's because they can't change how they treat you just because you have antibodies or that's the cause of your thyroid disease. So if you've got Graves or Hashimoto's, they can't treat you any differently. It's still a tablet, depending on what your situation is, perhaps surgery, that's it. So nothing changes for them. So they're, as a business, not going to run those tests unnecessarily when it changes nothing for them of how they can help. However, it changes everything for us because when we know we've got autoimmune disease, then we know that we need to calm our immune system down. Anyway, that's not the theme of today's little chat. I went through college 4 years. I started thyroid school so that I could contribute to the conversation in any way that I could, because by this time, and after doing clinic hours for my studies, I understood just how many people out there had thyroid disease. And I was in my bubble. I didn't know. And so I just kept going on. My new normal was better after studying for 4 years. I felt better. I had reversed my antibodies. The fatigue had gone away. I pretty much felt amazing, I have to say. However, I still weighed upwards of 130 kilos. That didn't budge. It took a really long time for the pieces of the puzzle to fit together for that to happen. And a lot of people ask me how it happened. And so that's what this story is about. Now, somewhere along the line there, I got diagnosed with lipedema. If you don't know what lipedema is, you can check out my other YouTube channel, which is just my name. And I talk all about it there because it is something that's really common in thyroid women because it's caused by hormones out of whack and estrogen, particularly high levels of estrogen. And I say caused by, it's not, it's something you're born with. 11% to 16% now they're trying to figure out of women are born with this. And it's kind of like leaky lymphatics, like you get leaky gut. It's a kind of a leaky lymphatic issue. And it it stays sort of dormant, and then all of a sudden puberty, pregnancy, menopause, any high hormonal times can trigger it to take off. And that's what happened for me. So when I was 21 and my thyroid kicked it, it took about 2 years before I was actually diagnosed because it wasn't a go-to thing. That was back in 1990. And so it wasn't a thing to go to. So my hormones were way out of whack for about 2 years, which caused the weight gain to pile on. But now I understand it was lipedema weight that piled on as opposed to normal weight as such, although normal weight comes with the lipedema weight. And lipedema weight, you cannot diet or exercise away at all. Okay, just so that you know a little bit about that. Um, and if you're wondering if you have that, just here's a really quick rundown. You'll bruise easily. It is called painful fat syndrome. So if somebody pinches you on the arm or you knock yourself up against a doorway or something like that, it's excruciating. Having your blood pressure taken, excruciating. It's not just the normal kind of ouch kind of thing, right? So if you have any of those sorts of things, comment below and we'll put you on that right trajectory, because that was what then started to change things for me, in so much as my understanding of why had I never been able to solve this weight loss thing. I did all the protocols. I did some pretty hardcore protocols through college that I learned about, and I was strict. I know, hand on heart, that I was strict. Just like you've been strict about a lot of the diets and the protocols that you've done, and it's changed nothing. And that's heartbreaking in its own right. I continued on, even though I knew I had lipedema, I still didn't understand it fully. And this was after college. So I learned nothing about lipedema in college. It really wasn't in the textbooks, so to speak, or it certainly wasn't on our curriculum. And doctors pretty much still don't know anything about it as well. So it's a pretty hard thing to have diagnosed. And it is what it is. But even though I knew about it, I was still chasing the thyroid thing. At this point, I still wasn't, I was thinking it was a thyroid issue, and there was something I was missing that I hadn't fixed yet, that I hadn't changed or nailed, or there was just that, I felt like there was that missing little piece, and I did everything. And this led me down the road of emotional healing, and I went into different modalities that dealt with emotions and, mind, body, soul. I added in crystals that were good for the thyroid, essential oils, you name it. Every direction I added it in. And what happened was somebody from thyroid school one day approached me in America. That's, I think, 70 or 80% of you that follow me are from America. And which is strange for this Aussie girl who's now living in Bangkok, Thailand. So I'm not even in Australia anymore. And she wanted me to coach her through gastric sleeve surgery. And I was like, oh, I'm not your person. I'm very much about helping people that I know what it's like. I've experienced it, and therefore I've got a vested interest in getting the best outcome that I can for my clients. And so gastric sleeve surgery, in my head, still, after all the studies that I'd done and all the research I'd done, it was still for me, oh, you had weight loss surgery if you couldn't control the amount of food you ate, which is relevant for a lot of people out there, right? Through no fault of your own, if that's one of you, right? So there's different reasons for excessive eating, and a lot of them are chemical, so that's okay. But in my head, I was like, oh, I gastric sleeve surgery, weight loss surgery, that's not for me, because I don't eat enough to need it. So this lady comes to me and I said to her, look, I'm not your person. You need to find somebody who deals with or is in that world, because it's not something I've ever considered. So I know next to nothing about it. This was an angel sent to me. And she was insistent. No, I want you to coach me through it. And I had never spoken with this lady before. I hadn't seen her name come up in comments and things like this. And so she was this completely unknown woman, my angel, whoever you are out there. If you know who you are, please let me know. So I went and looked specifically into the studies around Hashimoto's, which is what she had, and having a gastric sleeve, and started to find studies around lipedema, Hashimoto's, and gastric sleeve. And the more I found about it, I was like, oh, it's something to do with the peptides in your gut. There's something going on with your hormones, that when you have some form of weight loss surgery, it alters the hormones, which is advantageous to people with lipedema. So I got curious. I was more and more like, oh, wow, this could actually be an answer for me. And I sat with it for not long, not long. And then I said to my husband one day, I think I'm going to have gastric sleeve surgery. And he kind of looked at me, and I'm lucky. He just supports whatever I think I'm going to do. And he said, well, you don't eat much, so you've got nothing to lose. Because he also, like me, just thought that that is what you have it for. That is why you have it, to stop your eating. And if you're like me, a lot of thyroid women out there have low appetite. And I'd say that's to do with the zinc thing, because zinc is very much needed in the thyroid pathway. And zinc also, if you've got low zinc levels, you have a low appetite generally. And so I was all in. And so I went back to this little angel and said, not only am I happy to coach you through your gastric sleeve surgery, I am going to have it myself. And she was like, oh, and this was a couple of months later. And she said, oh, I've actually changed my mind, but thanks for getting back to me. So she went away and I went through with it. So that's why I say she was an angel. So when you do inner work and when you do all the things, not just the physical things, but the mind, body, soul things, sometimes that just opens your mind to possibilities that you hadn't thought of. And it gives you the capacity to actually follow that road. And so I did. After years of never considering gastric sleeve surgery, I was all in. And literally 4 months later, after this came about, in fact, it wouldn't have even been 4 months, maybe 3 months, I had my surgery. And because I knew what I knew about clean eating and the things that cause inflammation, and thyroid disease and is an inflammatory disease, so I already had a head start. So I continued to eat. I was very plant-based at this point. I continued to eat this way, and the weight just started coming off, and it never had before. And it only to you have they call it a honeymoon period that first year, but you're pretty much back to eating, for me, a normal amounts well before that year's up because I didn't eat much anyway. I was pretty much back to eating amounts that I would normally eat unless I went out to a buffet or those moments, you have a party, that sort of thing. You always eat more than what you should and you pay for it. But as an everyday thing, I was back to that within about 6 months. But I continued to drop weight. And that was to do with the hormone restructuring. I don't know. I still don't know. And they don't know. The experts don't know either, especially when it comes to lipedema. So that was how my journey changed. I did not tell anyone on thyroid school. I had been the face of thyroid school. I went live on thyroid school on Facebook page really regularly. I was embarrassed because I had that thought process that, oh, people are just going to assume that I was eating behind closed doors, that I wasn't really walking the talk, that I wasn't really having, the clean eating, that sort of thing. So for a really long time, until I got to a point where there was no denying I had lost weight, and people started saying, what have you done? That I had to come clean and share what I'd done. So that was the start. Being 51, I was when I had this done. My skin did not bounce back the way it should, of course, because I wasn't 20 anymore and I'd been morbidly obese, 100, almost 130 kilos for 30 years. So the next step after that was being open to the idea of skin removal surgery, and with that, lipedema surgery, because lipedema fat can only be removed by liposuction. Lipedema fat, and the reason it hurts so much under the skin is so if you see the women with, and I'll put some images up from lipedema.org, which graciously shared them with me. You have nodules under your skin, and they're actually, the fat becomes round balls and become fibrotic and hard, which is what causes the pain and the inflammation and what causes the severe cellulite looking appearance to it. Whereas normal fat is kind of soft and flat and spongy, I suppose, whereas lipedema fat is round balls. So the only way that that can be removed, and the other thing about it is it goes into the interstitial tissue, into the subcutaneous tissues, all these sciencey words, where you cannot, that's why you cannot diet and exercise it away. It kind of gets trapped in this layer of your skin that you cannot do anything about. So removing it via liposuction is kind of the only option. So the first thing I did was have my arms done. So you can just sort of see, and you can still see the loose skin in the upper arms. There's nothing I can do there, but lipedema sort of stops here, which is generally why you also have an overhang here. So 30% of women with lipedema have upper arm issues. So I had my arms done, and They did liposuction on them to take out the lipedema fat that was still there and then the skin removal. I've had a lower body lift here in Bangkok, and I have had the neck done and the mid face done. And next month, I am having a breast lift and side lift, which is all the overhanging skin here. Now, this is all part and parcel of just following my journey and saying yes to what shows up next for me and what is within my ability to pay for. And obviously, having these things done in Bangkok. I had my arms done in Australia, and my lower body lift and face cost $10,000 less than just my arms did in Australia. So it is their bread and butter over here. They're very good at what they do. So it's not like third world country stuff. We're talking about hospitals with grand baby pianos in the foyer and cucumber and strawberry water while you're waiting to see a doctor, this sort of thing. It's next level in case you've got different ideas in your head of what it might look like. So I just continued to follow this. Now, as I've gone along, my thyroid medication has reduced consistently. In fact, when I moved to Bangkok and when I was about to go in for my lower body lift, I got denied. I had my blood test, I had my checkup and my pre-op the day before the surgery, and I was told, nope, we're putting your surgery back till Thursday. This was Sunday and it was meant to be the Monday. And we're putting your surgery back to Thursday because you're running into hyper right now, hypothyroidism, because I needed to reduce my medication. I was walking everywhere over here. It's a hotter environment. I'd lost more weight, and all of these things contributed to needing less medication. I kind of knew, and this is about knowing your body, right? I kind of knew something was not right because I was getting vertigo, and I tend to get vertigo if I'm in hyper. Know your body. And what else was happening? Oh, struggling with sleep, the insomnia, the wired and tired, right? So, but I still, because we'd moved countries and all these things going on, I didn't kind of like twig to it all until I had these blood tests. And I wasn't worried because I knew I was about to have a checkup before my surgery anyway. So that was within 3 months of moving here. So it was kind of worked out the way it should. And they took all my stats and everything, and they said, right, you need to stop taking your medication for 4 days. That will take you out of hyper. And then we'll send an endocrinologist in to see you and reassess your thyroid medication needs, which they did. And so I have continued to lower it. One of the things that I do every day here, so it's not just the walking, these are the things that I've realized have contributed to lowering my medications like 3 times since I've been here in 7 months. The amount of walking I do, because we don't have a car here. So we walk everywhere. We walk up to get the groceries. We walk to the train. We walk, we just walk everywhere. Plus, we do a walk at the end of every day. So walking, walking, walking. It's warmer. I'm getting more sunlight, therefore more vitamin D. I started taking vitamin C every single morning, not taking it, but drinking it. So a vitamin C tablet that bubbles or effervescence into a thing. It's very clean. It's that all it's got in it is vitamin C. And I take that not long after my thyroid tablet first thing in the morning. And I have since found out, which I did not know at the time, I did this because it cleans your upper GI tract, right? It makes your upper GI tract is meant to be sterile. And when we get sicknesses and bugs, it's because things are in there that shouldn't be. And so I'd been following this doctor, Dr. Sarah, someone, and she was a proponent of having this vitamin C drink first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. And so without thinking, because I knew it didn't have any really interactions negatively on having my thyroid tablet, so I would have my thyroid tablet and then have my vitamin C drink and then go about my day. And then an hour later have dinner, have breakfast and all that sort of thing. Turns out vitamin C taken with your thyroid medication helps you absorb it better. And so that's another reason why I was doing better and needed less medication since I've been here. Also, steak is really expensive here. So while I was pretty much carnivore back in Australia, or at least very high keto. Here, I I could not get steak at a reasonable price. I will spring for it every now and again, but for the most part, I eat pork and chicken here. Chicken is extremely high in tyrosine, as is turkey, which is the T in T4 and T3. So I was all of a sudden having way more tyrosine, and pork is the highest meat in vitamin B1, which is needed for the thyroid pathway. In fact, I think it's the thyroid pharmacist that talks about supplementing with vitamin B1. But I was just having it naturally by the sheer amount of pork that I was now eating because I wasn't eating the beef anymore. So, all of these things, the walking, the sunshine, probably the less stress because, hey, I live in Bangkok. And what else did I just say? The vitamin C and the pork and the chicken, between all of those things, have contributed to lowering my needs for medication. I still have hopes that I can one day get off medication. Whether I will or I won't, I don't know, but I'm always open to the possibility. I continue to do emotional work all the time. If you want to check out somebody in regards to that, I've got another video below with Dr. Jin Ong, who is the art of listening to your body. She talks about your emotions getting trapped in your body, and she has a very interesting take on what the metaphysical reasons are for thyroid disease. So I highly recommend you watch that if that interests you. Now, so that's where I'm at the moment. That has been my journey so far. By incorporating mind, body, and soul and looking at all aspects of my thyroid disease, it opened my mind to the possibility that, okay, maybe I do need gastric sleeve surgery, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm hiding what I'm eating. That's other people's issues, right? And it's a big learning curve in letting go of what other people are judging you for or what you perceive them to be judging you for. And often it's not. Often it's just triggering something in themselves because maybe they're emotional eating in the fridge, in the pantry at night when everybody else has gone to bed. So they're like, "Oh, you're doing that. You must be doing that." Right. And I've had comments over the years, I wouldn't trust a naturopath that had to have gastric sleeve surgery. And that's okay. Those people are not for me, right? And I don't really talk naturopathically. Those of you who have worked with me, you'll know I talk more about the emotions and being in your body and that kind of thing than I do anything else, right? So if you're that, there's lots of you in here that have worked with me on those levels. So, back me up on that one, will you? And I think you just have to keep walking the walk and follow your journey and take the next right step for you. I would not have changed my life in the last 4 years had I not been brave enough to go, it doesn't matter that my business is made up of people following me because I'm a naturopath. Maybe you weren't following me for that reason. I don't know. I had to do what was right for me. And it's always about me and it's always about you. You have to do what's right for you. How does it feel to live in your body? How does it feel for you when you're lying in bed at night? How does it feel for you when you put on that mask and you're trying desperately not to let anybody else know what you're going through on an everyday basis? Right? You're the only one that feels that. I'm the only one that knows what was going on in my brain. And I had to have the courage to go, well, I'm going to do it because I knew that if it worked for me, if the gastric sleeve worked for me, then there was going to be no hiding it, right? I've got videos of myself from, thyroid academies that I've run and challenges that I've run. And I look at myself and I go, holy smokes, completely different person. But I feel so much better. And that's the point. That's the point. For me, healing is feeling better and better and better no matter what's going on or no matter what I do to achieve it. So it doesn't matter if it's, weight loss surgery. It doesn't matter if it's a GLP-1. It doesn't matter if it's medication. As long as you're feeling better and you're not feeling worse, that's the goal. That's the journey. That's what we're aiming towards. And that's what I will continue to work towards and share with you on Thyroid School. And that's what I want for you. First of all, I want you to know your body. Second, I want you to know the thyroid pathway. And third, I want you to understand and accept that nobody is as interested in your health as you are. And that's exactly how it should be. So you have to make decisions for yourself based on what you're thinking when you lay in bed at night.